Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Happy Friday. It's Friday, August 22nd, and looking forward to sharing some great topics with you this morning and wonderful guests. We have Doug Keck right out of the gate after the weather and the news. He'll be giving us the inside word. Doug is President Emeritus, of course, of this very fine network, which just celebrated 44 years on the air last week. Pretty cool stuff. And we'll discuss what's coming up, including get his thoughts on the growth of radio, because we have the radio conference coming up next week. Very excited about that. We'll be broadcasting live next week. We'll have more details as we get closer to the event. We head down there on Tuesday, and then most of us are doing our shows live on Thursday. Will be a whole day of live broadcast from the D.C. area. Technically, we'll be in Virginia at our beautiful hotel where the conference is, but it's considered basically a suburb of D.C., as I'm sure you all know. So we'll talk with Doug about that, as well as what's coming up this weekend and next week, and wrapping up, of course, the month of August already. Next week, got some big heavy hitters again with the Saints, St. Monica, and, of course, St. Augustine, back-to-back. We'll talk about that as we continue with the program. All right, then the bottom of the hour, we do what's called Fact Check Friday, taking a look at some issues in the media. Now, if you have been on, which I do every morning, the wonderful websites of the Register and Catholic News Agency and our other outlets, just to see what's happening in the Catholic world, there's a very interesting story about Bishop Barron putting out a very important video about the dangers of AI. And he wanted to alert people because there are several different videos out there that are circulating on the internet that are just completely fake. And these people are such pros in terms of these videos that the voice and the face and everything is so similar, and they can take images of people. It's mind-blowing what they can do now. And while technology is great, we just talked about the fact that we have wonderful technology with EWTN, there's also a downside. So we'll talk about that in our Fact Check Friday. And then continuing that conversation, Donna Hughes, the president and CEO of Enough is Enough, is going to be taking a look at a new AI tool, speaking of AI, that's being tested by YouTube to figure out if children are watching inappropriate content. So we'll continue that conversation on AI, artificial intelligence, and how we can figure out what we can do in terms of how we understand what's going on with AI on the internet. That is the first hour of the program on a Friday morning, August 22nd. Let's take a look at the weather from the National Weather Service. We still have dangerous heat out west, coastal flooding and high rip current risk into the weekend on the east coast, flash flooding possible in the southeast. More details from the National Weather Service: a dangerous record heat wave continuing for the desert southwest and the Central Valley of California through tomorrow in the Pacific Northwest, all the way through Tuesday, so next week. Coastal flooding expected through tonight at high tide along the eastern seaboard from Erin, while the high rip current risk and dangerous surf continues through the weekend. Flash flooding is possible today in Georgia and South Carolina. It's so interesting, the power of these storms, even though technically they're not making landfall, the impact they can still have because of the rough surf and all of that and the wind. So we'll keep you up to date and have some stories as well in our newscast as to what's happening with Hurricane Erin in the Atlantic hurricane season. It is a Friday morning. We appreciate your listenership here at Catholic Connection, an EWTN production. Let's get started with the news in almost 4 minutes past the hour here on EWTN. Well, Pope Leo calling for today to be a day of prayer and fasting for peace. A news release from the Vatican saying the day of prayer and fasting comes as our world continues to be wounded by wars in the Holy Land, in Ukraine, and in other parts of the world. The Pope says the day is an act of imploring the Lord to grant us peace and justice and to wipe away the tears of those who suffer because of ongoing armed conflicts. Meanwhile, Vatican News is reporting that Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, is expressing gratitude for the Pope's constant attention and hopes that people's hearts may change. He told Vatican News they're grateful for the day of prayer and fasting and the attention to peace, which the Pope has returned to very often, almost always. He says it's a very delicate theme, one felt very deeply by us, but it's not the first time that we have committed ourselves to days of prayer and fasting, he said. They have been done in the past, and it is the only thing that at this moment we can do, the Cardinal said, to pray and to fast, to keep our attention directed toward God. It is the only thing right now so that our hearts may change. Prayer, however, he warned, should not be relied upon as if it were a magic formula that solves our problems. He said prayer serves to change our hearts, adding the approaching prayer in such a way would end up creating only, approaching prayer that way would end up only creating frustration. He explained prayer serves again to open our hearts in context of hatred and rejection of the other, as has occurred with war in the absence of peace. And tensions are very high in Illinois as parents are expressing their concerns about a male student who made the girls' volleyball team at Conant High School in Hoffman Estates. Members of the public showing up to a school board meeting Wednesday night to voice their strong opinions about the student athlete.
Would you want your daughter to compete against a boy who is 6'4"? Would you be happy if a boy secured a spot on the team meant for your daughter?
The meeting got so heated that police escorted a woman in the audience from the room. The controversy comes after President Trump signed an executive order earlier this year banning biological men and boys from competing in female sports. Catholic News Agency is reporting this morning a pro-life group filed a formal complaint against late-term abortionist Cesar Santangelo this week, citing a documented history of alleged medical malpractice and serious injury of patients. Leaders of the Survivors of the Abortion Holocaust group alleging that he has a pattern of injuring patients, endangering people's lives, they say, and prematurely ending at least one life. In that complaint, which was addressed to the members of the Washington, D.C. Board of Medicine, the 12-page complaint details alleged medical malpractice by Santangelo that has led to the death or serious injury of patients. The letter is signed by the Survivors Director, Timothy Clement, and the Survivors D.C. organizer, Kristen Turner. President Trump is meeting with law enforcement in Washington, thanking officers for cooperating with the federal takeover of the city's police as part of his crackdown on crime.
Some incredible results. The results have come out, and it's like a different place.
He said crime is down since the operation began. In an interview yesterday, he hinted he's planning to join law enforcement in patrolling the streets of D.C. Brian Shook tells us a new survey says illegal immigration has hit a record high, or did hit a record high 2 years ago, back in 2023.
The Pew Research Center found that 14 million immigrants came into the U.S. after the COVID-19 pandemic and Biden policy changes. The surge of immigrants came from 2021 to 2023 during the pandemic fallout that especially impacted poorer countries. California, Texas, Florida, and New York saw the most illegal immigrants come to their states. I'm Brian Shook.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration says it plans on screening all 55 million foreigners with U.S. visas. The State Department releasing a statement yesterday saying continuous vetting of U.S. visitors will allow the agency to revoke visas after finding signs of potential ineligibility, including indicators of overstays, criminal activity, threats to public safety, and any form of terrorist activity. The Washington Post quotes a senior State Department official saying the process of rescreening people who already have a visa is likely to prove time-consuming and will include social media vetting. President Trump's penalty in his New York civil fraud case is being tossed out. An appeals court making the ruling yesterday in the case involving the president. He weighed in on the matter during a visit with law enforcement officers.
And we're having a lot of victories. I had a victory today. You know, they stole $550 million from me with a fake case, and it was overturned. They said this was a fake case.
He was initially ordered to pay $355 million in penalties, and that only grew over time with interest. The appeals court judges called the penalty excessive and said it violated the Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution. The White House calling that decision another failed skirmish in the discredited lawfare campaign against the president. Another win for the administration, as Michael Kastner tells us. They can move forward now with pulling hundreds of millions of dollars of National Institutes of Health grants linked to so-called diversity initiatives after a Supreme Court ruling that came out yesterday.
The 5-4 decision in part reversed a lower court ruling that canceling the funds was illegal. 5 of the court's conservative justices ruled in favor of the administration, accusing the lower court of defying an earlier Supreme Court ruling that allowed the administration to cancel grants. Chief Justice John Roberts joined the liberal justices in opposition. I'm Michael Kastner.
The suspect in the stabbing spree at a Michigan Walmart in July will have a competency hearing today. The suspect is being held on a $100,000 bond, and the prosecution has noted a history of mental illness. Bradford Galea has been charged with 1 count of terrorism and 11 counts of assault with intent to murder. He pleaded not guilty on all charges. Officials say reports of an active shooter on the campus of Villanova University in Pennsylvania, well, those reports were a hoax.
There was a call that came in around 4:30 this afternoon to law enforcement, to 911 center, saying that there was an active shooter in the building, in the law school building, and that there was a victim, at least one victim, who was wounded. That has turned out not to be true.
That's Delaware County District Attorney Jack Stollmeyer speaking yesterday. The school president emailed students less than 2 hours after the alert, calling it a cruel hoax. So far, though, there's no word who's responsible, and there's an investigation underway. The district attorney called the hoax a crime and says they will indeed track down whomever was responsible. Hurricane Erin, as we mentioned earlier, is now causing coastal flooding in parts of the country, including North Carolina. Erin Gilchrist has more from North Carolina's Outer Banks, where some areas are under evacuation orders as well, and where a state of emergency is in effect.
We knew this was going to be an ocean event. This was going to be a wind event, and we've been seeing strong winds in this area. Gusts where we are in the 30-mile-an-hour range. There have been stronger gusts, closer to 50 miles an hour.
The storm remaining a Category 2 with maximum sustained winds of 105 miles an hour. It's about 210 miles east of Cape Hatteras. The National Hurricane Center says it is moving north-northeast as it heads away from the coast. Meantime, swimming at most East Coast beaches is being discouraged because of the threat of potentially life-threatening surf and rip currents. And again, speaking of those dangerous conditions, New Jersey shore communities are bracing for storm flooding from Hurricane Erin. Seaside Heights Mayor Tony Vaz expecting 10 to 12-foot waves that are coming.
Concerned about the coastal flooding, which could affect low-level housing, and in a particular area on our bay side.
Vaz is asking residents in his area to die down loose furniture and get those vehicles off the street. He says there's no swimming allowed as well at Seaside Heights, and he also says police will hand out tickets to anyone who disobeys that order. Bree Tennis tells us, if you've noticed, folks are a bit testy in the heat wave, especially where the parts of the country right now are strongly affected. There's some scientific proof that says it's true.
Psychology Today says there's a direct correlation between high heat and hot tempers. They say the heat makes us angry, irritable, and aggressive. Police studies show violent crimes like murder, aggravated assault, mass shootings, and rape go up when the temperature climbs. There's no magic number to hit to turn on the anger, but a recent study found positive emotions are replaced with negative ones when the thermometer hits 90 degrees. I'm Bree Tennis.
Well, if you'd like to drive someplace cooler for the Labor Day weekend, here's some good news that may calm you down a bit. Gas prices are expected to remain low for the upcoming Labor Day weekend. AAA says the national average for a gallon of regular should stay below last year's average of $3.33 and should remain relatively low for the rest of the summer as long as Gulf Coast refineries are not hit by hurricanes. Labor Day is, for many, the last big holiday weekend of the summer. The vice president of AAA Travel says the top destination cities of the holiday weekend this year are Seattle and Vancouver, British Columbia, both port cities, of course, for Alaska cruises. 13 minutes past the hour. I do hope your Friday is going well as we enter into another weekend, August 22nd, 2025. And just a reminder, the National Weather Service is saying dangerous heat in the west, coastal flooding and high rip currents into the weekend on the east coast, flash flooding possible in the southeast. So keep that in mind if you're in any of those affected areas. It's a Friday. Friday. Doug Keck is up next. Stay tuned. Fifteen minutes past the hour. It's a Friday morning, and that means we check in with our President Emeritus, Doug Keck, for our Inside Word. So, Doug, great to have you on with us on Fridays, of course. I just wanted to get your take since you have been with the network for so many years and saw so much growth in so many areas. Next week, we're having our annual radio conference down in D.C. I'm very excited to be attending and speaking. It's going to be a lot of fun to see everybody. It's always kind of like a family reunion. And speaking of family reunions, it's connected, of course, to the big family celebration the following weekend. But looking back, just share your thoughts in terms of the growth of radio over the years, your years at EWTN.
Right. Well, yeah. Obviously, I'd like to give a shout out to people to check out the family celebration in Tyson's in Virginia, and that's very exciting. And I think there's some great numbers showing up from who's registered already. So it sounds like it'll be a great event, and there'll be opportunities, I know, for the people who are going to the radio conference to visit our news studio operations in D.C. And I think there may be some other opportunities for people to take tours there who are going to the family celebration. So it's really exciting. There's been a lot of growth. And I think really going back to even, 96 when I came, when kind of the focus basically was on shortwave, and that was kind of the radio outlet, and there was a couple of stations here and there that were Catholic-owned. Most of them, weren't particularly apologetic in the sense of the kind of programming they did, even if they were quote-unquote owned or operated by a Catholic institution. So basically, I remember in the early days there were a couple of people who came forward. Obviously, Ave Maria was an early player, and many others came out, and there was a couple of stations, and some people met with Mother, and then, Mother said there's a lot of people out there with money, and, they should support. We'll give our programming away for free if you build the station. We'll give you the programming. And so that really was, the way of seeding the soil, and then thanks to wonderful Catholics who wanted to do something about their faith and evangelize and keep a Catholic culture going. And I think it's a great part of, along with EWTN, of why the United States has stayed as strong in the faith, and that there's as many faithful Catholics as there are today because of Catholic radio, which has become ubiquitous, whether it be the local, obviously, or Sirius satellite XM, and now obviously on the web with podcasts and things like that that you can stream on your phone. There's a million different ways to get wonderful, wonderful Catholic audio programming.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me how much it's grown and how many affiliates we have. It's 600, at least over 600, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're talking about the worldwide aspect of it
right.
too. There, radio's going to Africa, it's going to Europe. We don't really talk about those things, but these programs are being heard virtually around the globe.
Very exciting. I think Mother Angelica's looking down on us, smiling. All right, so busy time. We're wrapping up summer. Hard to believe, Labor Day weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. What are we looking forward to in terms of programming?
Well, today we've got a new episode of Life on the Rock on tonight, where Brother John talks with Joseph Pierce about great Catholic literature, so that's always interesting. Joey's always a lot of fun. We got Fields and Faith for sports with Bob Dolan. That's going to air also tonight at 11:30 p.m., so there's a couple of late-night programs. And then tomorrow, a classic, Bob and Penny Lord talking about Eucharistic miracles on a program that's going to be airing at 11:30 a.m., tomorrow. And, with all the Eucharistic discussion, I always try to remind people at times, besides promoting the saints and obviously Mother with the Eucharist, really, Bob and Penny really were some of the pathfinders when it came to talking about Eucharistic miracles. And really, we've heard more and more about it, and kind of ties into Blessed Carlo Acutis, this whole situation and what he did electronically and digitally. And, of course, September 7th, it will be his canonization, and EWTN will have complete coverage of that, so you can look for that. There's a fine program on Maximilian Kolbe called The Night that's airing tomorrow at 2 p.m. You can check
I saw that on
out.
Catholic News Agency this morning. That looks really good.
Right,
yeah.
So you've got that. There's a couple of other fine programs. We've got our movie of the week, which is St. Rose of Lima, which is a production that EWTN was directly involved in as a co-production, so you can look for that at 8 p.m. on Saturday night. And we've also got a Forgotten Souls of the South Sudan. This is all new. Colm Flynn's reports on what's going on there, so you can check that out as well. That's a program on EWTN you can look forward to. And another new program that's going to air on the 24th is at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is a profile in courage, Father John F. Harvey. And, of course, you know, he was the founder of Courage and,
yes.
you know, the whole same-sex attraction. And today, you know, it's even moved beyond that. We've got 85 different versions of whatever you're supposed to be, and so. But he really was, somebody who blazed a trail with dealing with this, and for the church to deal with this in a merciful way, but without, not standing up for what the church actually teaches by being true to the church, but doing it in a loving way, as St. Paul always said, speak the truth in love, and that's what we have to do. And then Living Divine Mercy, Father Chris has got a new program that's airing next week. You can look at that. And we re-air a popular series called Be a Man that Father Larry Richards did as well a while ago. And a new episode of The Wild Goose, which is always popular with Father Dave Pavanka. That's next Wednesday. You can look for that. And then we've got some other events happening later in the week. The Catholic University of America's Mass of the Holy Spirit as it kicks off its semesters as a new school year. And there's also some interesting things on the Shreveport Martyrs we're airing about the 5 priests who died during yellow fever. And there's actually a Mass that's also happening from Shreveport. We're going to air it around then, too, because, as you know, the broadening the idea of Catholic martyrs to include those people who, not necessarily were killed because they refused to convert or something like that, but who did heroic Catholic things for their people and gave up their lives. So check out EWTN.com for all the interesting programming. Check out, of course, our wonderful Podcast Central for all those great podcasts, and then our on-demand platform and YouTube channel.
Wow. I mean, I don't know what to watch first. I mean, seriously, there's so much great stuff. It's hard to keep track of it, right?
Absolutely. And that's what's great about the on-demand platform, because you don't have to catch it when it's airing. You have the ability to go back later and take a look at the on-demand platform and kind of curate through it and find the programming that you're the most interested in, and also the programs that you might have missed.
Yeah. And the EWTN Family Celebration, is that broadcast live or live streamed or aired later? How will that work, Doug? Do you know?
It'll be aired later.
Okay.
Definitely aired later. I'm not sure about the live stream, so I don't want to say one way or the other about that, honestly. We've done that on and off where we've live streamed the event, but we usually air it usually the following weekend and bring you just basically the talks, etc., like that. So that's something you can look forward to as well. And, of course, radio always broadcasts live from the event.
And then next week we've got all of the hosts. I think we have one whole day of broadcasting live, which will be a lot of fun. I just found out, though, that my show is going to be broadcasting during my friend Matthew Bunsen's keynote talk. I would say, sorry, Matthew, got to miss your keynote. Maybe we can broadcast from the room where he's speaking. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But I'm very excited to see everybody. It's always great to regroup and also connect with the affiliates, and gives you a sense of the growth of the network. And it must make executives such as yourself really feel very, very grateful and proud of what you've accomplished over the last, for you, almost 40 years, right? Or over 40 years.
Let's
39.
say 30
39.
for EWTN. And some of the 20 years before, it's a mixed bag. Depending on what I was working on at the time.
Yeah.
American Movie Classics would be okay. Some of those things would be fine. Those were quite wholesome. So, it's exciting. It's exciting, I think, because there's going to be kind of a, let's say, an accent on news because of our Washington news location. And so a lot of the Monsi and Matthew Bunsen will be there, and Catherine Hadro, and some of the people maybe people haven't seen at other family celebrations.
It's just great. So. In addition to having such a talented staff professionally, they're just so fun. They're just such really nice people. They really
Absolutely.
Are. Just like you are.
I don't know about that, but I'll take it.
I think so.
Thank you.
All right, my friend, you have a great weekend. We'll catch up next week. Our friend Doug Keck here on EWTN with our Inside Word on a Friday. It is a Friday morning. It's August 22nd, 2025. We're so grateful for your listenership here on EWTN's Catholic Connection. So we do a Fact Check Friday every week to keep you informed in terms of what's happening with the media, because as the wonderful Archbishop Chaput Emeritus always says, we need to know how the media works so they don't work on us. And as I mentioned at the top of the show today in our introduction segment, there's so many great things, as Doug just explained as well in the previous segment, about the media and the expansion, for example, of Catholic radio, Catholic TV, great Catholic podcasts, and also cultural programs and different events that are able to be covered and shared through the internet. And even AI has its purpose, and a good one, but there are many people out there who want to take those good things and use them for not so good things, and sometimes even for evil, as in taking your money, my money, scamming, and it's getting more and more realistic because of AI. Case in point, there's a very good story on CatholicNewsAgency.com this morning where Bishop Barron is warning about fake AI videos impersonating him. Now, Deacon Dom and I were talking about this because we subscribe to Word on Fire, which, by the way, is great. I think Bishop Barron is one of the best communicators and teachers of the faith today. I just think he's wonderful. He's brilliant. Of course, he's a philosopher, and he's extremely intelligent when it comes to theology. But I love his Sunday sermons. We watch them every week, and especially we watch them in Italy if we can't get to an English Mass, which is rare because obviously we're in Italy, so most of the Masses are in Italian. And we can get pieces of that, but we're still learning the language. So it takes us a little bit of time to go back and figure out and think about what the priest may have said or the deacon may have said. But we're grateful for EWTN, and we're grateful for Bishop Barron's sermons that he does every Sunday and puts them online on Word on Fire. And that's why whenever, it's like E.F. Hutton. Remember that old commercial when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen? And this is how I feel about Bishop Barron. If he's saying something, it's really important and we need to pay attention. And so the story is really comprehensive. You should go to CatholicNewsAgency.com to check it out. But for parents, and we're going to continue the conversation after this segment as well regarding AI and a new tool that's being used to help you discern as to whether kids are watching inappropriate material. But let me just read you the lead paragraph, and then I'm going to have Richard, my wonderful producer, roll the video. It's a 3-minute video, and he talks about how ridiculous it is and how so many people, by no fault of their own because of the technology, are believing, unfortunately, what is being said in some of these ridiculous summaries that were put together by AI, through AI. Bishop Robert Barron of Winona, Rochester, Minnesota, and founder of the Catholic ministry Word on Fire, recently warned about the proliferation of fake videos created with artificial intelligence, AI, circulating on social media impersonating him. Now, you're not going to believe what these folks who are behind these videos did and just how many people also are believing what they're seeing and hearing online. Roll the tape, as we say in the biz, Richard.
Bishop Barron, I want to talk to my Word on Fire family and really anyone that follows me online about a problem that's becoming increasingly difficult. And that's the presence online of these videos generated by artificial intelligence that purport to be from me and that are not from me. I'll tell you, it first came to my attention several months ago that a lady stopped me and she said, "Oh, Bishop, I feel so bad about that altercation you got into at the restaurant in Chicago." I said, "What altercation?" "Oh, it was online, that you had a disagreement with someone at a Chicago restaurant." I said, "I've not been in a Chicago restaurant for about 5 years." Well, it was one of these AI-generated silly videos. Another one that I came across has me being summoned to Rome by Pope Leo for high-level discussions about points of disagreement. I've met Pope Leo once. It happened a couple weeks ago in Rome. We put it up on our social media. I shook his hand and he smiled at me. That's my one contact with him. I'm not being summoned to Rome for high-level discussions. One that just came out recently had me giving recommendations about how to remove demons from your toilet. So my point, everybody, is this is all ridiculous. And I think if you spend just a moment, you can tell the difference between an authentic video from me and one of these fakes. But here's the other thing. It's not just people having harmless fun. These are fraudsters. What they're doing is making money off of these things because they monetize them through ads. So think of someone, a third-rate band that does a knockoff of a pop song, but puts the original musician's name and picture on the cover and then sells it. Well, that's what's going on here with these things. So it's not just harmless fun people are having. It's doing damage to my reputation, but also damage to people who are being defrauded. So can I urge you, don't take these silly things seriously. Don't watch them. And what you look for is something on my YouTube channel, something on the official Word on Fire channels, and there's a blue check you can see next to my name, the profile name. Look for that. That's the sign that it's a video from me. But also, I would say to those who've been following me for 25 years, use your common sense too. When you see these goofy images that are obviously generated by a computer, and you hear me talking about some wild thing, I hope you have the sense to know, look, that's not really Bishop Barron speaking. So it's just becoming increasingly a problem, and I want you to know about it and then do what you can to battle it. And God bless you.
Super important. I really appreciate his message, and imagine being the target of this. And it's happened also to Father Michael Schmitz. I was just talking with him about that when I saw him up in Mackinac. And you even heard, I think it was last month, we had an interview with Carmel Communications and Lisa Wheeler, who's the founder and president of that organization, how they were victims of online scams. Not necessarily, well, no, actually one of her clients was the victim of an AI scam because they used the voice of a fake voice of Jonathan Rumi to try to raise money and convince people that Jonathan Rumi was asking you to support, his ministry, whatever, which they just don't do. Neither does Father Michael Schmitz or, of course, the bishop. But it's super important for us to be aware of this and to help our young people in our family or maybe in our parishes if you are in catechesis in any way. And I would also encourage you to go to the Vatican website, in addition to reading this story on CatholicNewsAgency.com and going to Word on Fire, is to see what the Pope has to say about this, because they have a whole segment in this report about the Pope and how the Pope has expressed concerns, because obviously, being the leader of the Universal Catholic Church, he has been the victim, to the point where there was this very, very leftist video that was put out of the Pope, supposedly him reading and talking about being woke and how woke is being holy. And it really made the rounds. And the Vatican came out and denounced that, as well as several other fake AI videos. And he actually put out a statement on June 7th underscoring the urgent need for serious reflection and ongoing discussion on the inherently ethical dimension of AI, as well as its responsible governance. A month later, in his message to participants at the AI for Good 2025 summit held in Switzerland, he recalled that although responsibility for ethical use of AI systems begins with those who develop, manage, and oversee them, those who use them also share in the responsibility. And he urged the Pope urged the promotion of regulatory frameworks centered on the human person and proper ethical management of AI technologies at both the local and global levels. But here's the Pope saying, yes, those who are using this technology, developing it, managing it, and overseeing AI, they're responsible, but so are those of us who use it. We have to do our homework, as Bishop Barron said, to make sure what we're watching is actually real. More on this coming up. It is a Friday. We appreciate your listenership. 36 minutes past the hour. You're listening to EWTN's Catholic Connection. Technology is great when it's used wisely and well, and we need to be aware, as Pope Leo mentioned, that those of us who are using it are responsible, as well as those developing new technologies, especially online. Someone who knows all about that is Donna Hughes. She's president and CEO of Enough is Enough. And we're going to be talking about a number of things, including a new AI tool that's being tested by YouTube to determine if children are watching inappropriate content. Donna, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure our listeners are familiar with your ministry and your work, but tell us how you were prompted and moved to get involved in this area in terms of so much awareness on what's happening with the media.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. Well, I began in 1994, just at the advent of the Internet. In fact, we weren't even calling it the Internet. Then we were calling it cyberspace. But we saw the beginnings of hardcore pornography, child pornography, and sexual predators using the pre-Internet. And we thought, oh, my goodness, the bad guys are out in front of everyone, including policymakers, public awareness, and even the media. So that's how I got involved back in 94.
Did you ever think it would be to where we are today in terms of what's happened? I mean, there is so much good that can be done by the media and through the media and the technology, but it really, in so many areas, has gotten so dark and evil.
Well, it really has, and I think if we understand, that we're in a spiritual war. There is evil, and in something like this, the technology has typically been neutral, if you will. But I don't want to say it's necessarily neutral anymore. Even companies are purposefully rigging their algorithm to trick kids and to lead them down some black holes and rabbit holes. So, it can be used for good or evil. But, I would have never even thought of something like AI back when I started. And now here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a new tool, AI tool, being tested by YouTube to determine if children are watching inappropriate content. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So AI obviously can be used for good, just like anything. And this is what YouTube is doing. They're actually trying to determine whether a child is the age that they say they are. Kids have been lying about their age to get on social media sites since the advent of social media. So because there are age restrictions, age 13, however, there is no age verification. So any child, an 8-year-old can say they're 13, 14 years old, lie about their date of birth, and they're on. So YouTube is using AI to determine whether or not they really are the age that they say they are. And if AI has determined, and they're just doing this on a small set, they're testing this right now. If they believe, according to their AI tools, assessment that the child is actually under the age of 13, then they will begin to block certain types of more mature content. They'll disable personalized advertising. They'll turn on digital well-being tools and offer safeguards, et cetera. So, and also keep them off more mature sites. So that's where they're going with this. I think it's a good step. They could also solve a lot of this by simply putting in age verification tools so that kids under the age of 13 can't get on there in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So you think this is a good device, a good use of energy on the part of YouTube to get into this?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, big tech, unfortunately, has not been terribly proactive, right? And being a big source of good and making sure that their sites are being used for good and not for bad. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Of course, putting safety over or putting profits over safety. They're making billions of dollars advertising to kids, et cetera. So anytime they actually do something proactive like this, I think it's a good sign, but there's so much more that they need to be doing. And one of the ways that we're actually moving them in the right direction is through legislation.
Your website is incredible. There's so many great resources. Enough.org is the homepage, and there's all kinds of great resources for parents. And you have a whole section, Donna, dedicated to the fact that summer is winding down and school is about to start. Now, we have several states that have approved of bans on cell phones during school hours. Do you think that's a good move?
I do. I think it's unfortunate that we even have to go there, but we do. So kids are bringing their own devices, of course. And, are they learning when they're scrolling on social media sites while they're in the classroom? No, they're not. So actually either limiting or banning the use of cell phones inside the classroom, I think, is a good thing. And I hope that parents will understand that it's a good thing. The other thing is we put out a lot of information, actually a tool that parents can go and look at alternatives to giving their kids a smartphone to begin with, which I think is good. There are actually safe phones where you can call your kids, they can call you, they can do a lot of really neat things on these phones, but they're not internet connected. I mean, why? Here's the thing. Once a parent gives a child an internet connected tool, which could be a smartphone, a laptop, a gaming device, they all come turned on to the internet. Now you're opening up all the good of the internet and all the evil and all the bad, the people that will take advantage of your kids, like pornographers, predators, sex extortionists, and traffickers.
And what does a young child in grade school, and they're saying, and you know this because you've done the research and this is your life's ministry now. I mean, these kids are getting these phones as young as, 7 and 8 years old. Why do they need a smartphone?
They don't. They absolutely don't. And I think, one of the things that we teach parents, and we do a lot of parental education. In fact, we've got another website, Teresa, internetsafety101.org. And we've got all the different dangers and risks to kids listed out by category: pornography, social media, gaming, cyberbullying, sex trafficking, etc. And you can go in there and look at warning signs, red flags, conversation starters, and how to keep your kids safe, on the internet, period, in general. But I don't think kids need these phones that young. But and I see this, I've got 5 grandkids now. When a parent even starts to give their young toddler their own smartphone to watch YouTube videos, you're setting them up for screen time and an attraction to screen time. So I think we need to be very careful, and I just caution parents to be very careful about when they even introduce tech to their child. Because I can remember seeing my youngest grandkids when they were like 2 and 3 years old, they would have a laptop that they could watch. If that parent took that laptop away, oh my goodness, screaming fits, age 3. Right? That should tell every parent something. Be very careful about when you start introducing tech to your child.
It reminds me of an experience my husband and I had in a restaurant where we were with some other family members, and there's a lovely family next to us, and they had several young children. And the one little boy probably maybe looked to be around 3, maybe 4 years old. And he was very fussy. And the parents gave him the phone. And when the food came, they took the phone away. And Donna, the child really just started he had a fit. He had a temper tantrum, screaming, got up from the table, walking around. And so what did the parents do? They gave him back the phone.
Right. Now you're conditioning that child, just, it becomes the pacifier. And it's so easy. I know it's hard to manage these kids, and it does keep them quiet, and it keeps them fascinated for a reason, because the technology is designed to move fast, to move quick, and to keep moving really, really quickly to keep them drawn in by design. Another thing that came up, kids are going back to school. They're probably already in school in many of the states.
Many states, Florida and elsewhere,
And there's a New York Times story that just came out about the problem of nudifying apps and deep fakes. This is one of the ways that AI is being used for evil, right? So if parents realize that even an innocent picture that a parent or, yes, a grandparent might share on social media or anywhere online that is public, anyone can take that innocent picture of your child at the beach during your summer vacation and turn it into pornography through a nudifying app. So we need to be careful about how this is being used in an evil way. And kids themselves, Teresa, are using nudifying apps to take an innocent picture of a peer that they're now deciding to bully and then posting it. So kids themselves are using these apps. So if we can just be super careful as adults about how we post, or if we even choose to post pictures of the children in our lives, I think that's a wise thing. I've noticed, and I'm very proud of my, my children and daughters-in-law, etc. They're sending me pictures by text and saying, don't post.
Okay.
I'm like, thank you for sharing with me, no post. I'm not going to post anyway, but don't post. I mean, just really be super careful, because you certainly do not want that on you if it gets in the wrong hands and something bad happens.
Right. And that's great advice. Talking with Donna Rice Hughes, President and CEO of Enough is Enough. We're talking about a number of areas in terms of media and help for parents and families, including a new AI tool being tested by YouTube to determine if children are watching inappropriate content. It can be so overwhelming, though, Donna, right? I mean, because as a parent, I'm a great aunt, and my husband and I are very involved, and we don't have any children of our own, but we're very involved in our grandnieces' lives, and we see them, and their parents are constantly trying to balance it out between, they have a certain amount of screen time a day, and they're very good about it, but, they're influenced. The kids go to school, and they're influenced by other children, or even just hanging around, going to different events. How should parents approach this going into the new school year, do you think? And you've got, again, great tools on your website.
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I think every parent, if you can just understand that your child is at risk, period. If they go online and they have unrestricted internet access to any device that they have, they're at risk unless you, the parent, start to manage that access. What does that look like? We recommend using filtering technology that will help filter out any type of inappropriate content, and on every device your kids are using, monitoring software. And we just call these parental control tools, right? Monitoring will let you see where your kids are going, even send you a report. So implementing a contract. We have one online that you and your child can go through. We totally recommend that you do this and review it regularly. What are the house rules? Not just when they're in your home, but when they go to school, when they go to a friend's house for a sleepover. The other is time limiting tools. And also, I would say, no technology in the bedroom. Why?
Exactly.
Right? Okay, that sets up privacy and a code of silence for that child.
Right.
And this is where they oftentimes will get into trouble. So, I just encourage parents to use the tools. They're there to help you parent and to be a good cyber parent. But if you don't use them, they're not going to help you.
Yeah, and this is what pediatricians, and you know this as well, suggest, and of course Christian pediatricians, and Dr. Dobson, who just died recently. That was so sad. What a great gift he was to media.
Him.
Talk about good media. But my friend Dr. Meg Meeker, who worked with him at Focus on the Family, she writes books about this and talks about this all the time, that in addition to obviously the spiritual concerns, there's a physical concern for kids having access to that type of technology after hours when they're trying to sleep, because it affects their sleep patterns and their brain waves and everything. Donna, I wish we had more time. We have to have you back on. Thank you for what you're doing and for your dedication to helping families and to use media wisely, because we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, as the old saying goes, but we have to be aware of what's going on, and your websites are so helpful. So we have enough.org, and you mentioned the other website. What's that again?
Yes, InternetSafety101.org. And if your listeners would if you go to one of those sites, sign up for our newsletter. We're putting out information every single week. Yeah. And I have a podcast.
Yeah, and it's great stuff, too. It's very well organized, and it's very simple to follow. So thank you. We're out of time, but appreciate you, Donna. God bless you and continue the great work. CEO of Enough is Enough. We'll be right back on a Friday. Hope you're having a beautiful Friday morning. It's August 22nd, 2025. Feast day, of course, of the Queenship of Mary. Beautiful day. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. And we ask for her intercession, especially for peace, as the Pope is calling for a day of prayer and fasting today on this August 22nd. Coming up in the second hour of Catholic Connection on EWTN's Radio Extra, we are going to be talking with Leia Hunt. She's going to be in studio with us this morning, and she is a childhood cancer survivor, and she's a speaker. And her topic is finding ways to bring glory to God through trials, especially for children with cancer. Talk about a tough topic, a heartbreaker. I mean, it's horrible enough, and anyone we know and love gets sick, but when it happens to children, it just takes on, I think, a whole new level of being, so overwhelmed, especially in your heart when you see that kind of suffering. But imagine taking that experience and using it for good. And that's exactly what Leia is doing. And this is what our faith teaches us. Romans 8:28, all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Nobody likes suffering, right? We don't ask for it, and God doesn't go around zapping people. But he tells us that out of suffering can come great good, and people can be changed. Just look at the cross if you doubt that. So we'll talk about that with Leia, and she'll be in studio with us. We'll also have 2 cents for you, taking a look at some of the issues of the day. Hope you can stay tuned for hour number 2, and that will be on EWTN's Radio Extra. Happy Friday.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
And it is a Friday, August 22nd. Thank you for joining us on hour number 2 of Catholic Connection here on EWTN's Radio Extra. A great show lined up for you. If you heard the first hour of the program, you heard me sharing a real video done by the wonderful Bishop Barron out of Winona, of course, Minnesota. He's a bishop there. He's just fantastic. I think, as I always say, he's one of our greatest teachers and such a great communicator. But he has been the victim, as have many prominent religious leaders, Father Michael Schmitz, and of course, actors have been affected, Christian actors and other Catholic personalities, including Jonathan Rumi. This whole situation with AI online is out of control. It is a great technology that's adding to the way we communicate and learn on the internet. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we need to be aware. And sometimes, we're not really all that diligent in finding out where the information is coming from. And if you want to take a look at the story, I think it would be really helpful on Catholic News Agency. And I want to dive into that a little bit more deeply, share more with you in the story, but also pick up where we left off in the Fact Check Friday segment and go back to the Holy Father's letter on this, because he was speaking actually to a group that was having a conference related to AI, talking about the dignity of the human person. And then, of course, we had the interview in the first hour with Donna Rice, and she was talking about her group, Enough, Donna Rice Hughes, and all that is going on with AI. Being that we are winding down the summer, I realize that some are already in school already, and many kids have head off to college. But if you have young children, grade school children, even high school children are heading off to school in a few weeks after Labor Day, which is when many school districts do begin their school year, this is something I think that I hope you'll appreciate. And also, just as someone who may be trying to learn more about the faith, we have to make sure that we are learning how to use the media, because as Archbishop Chaput says, it's one of my favorite quotes. I use it all the time. We need to know how the media work so they don't work on us. And Pope Leo is calling us to pay more attention. He says, yes, those who are producing this kind of stuff that's coming out of AI and some of these videos that look so real, yes, they're responsible, but so are we. We can't just sit there and automatically believe what we see. We need to consider the source. And Bishop Barron was so good at saying this. Go to the original site. So these emails are floating around, right? They're all out there. What do you do? Okay, so somebody says, as one video did about Bishop Barron, that he got into an altercation with someone in Chicago. Check his video, Word on Fire. Check our videos. Check our website, legitimate Catholic websites. There was a huge controversy early on with the election of Pope Leo, where there was a video of him supposedly reciting a prayer all about how wokeness was holy. It was all made up. You know how many people wrote me and asked me about this? And my response is, consider the source. Go to the source. Go to the Vatican. It's very easy. Vatican.va, Vatican News, the official website. And you will see what videos are real and what videos are not. So we'll talk about that in 2 cents. And then I'm very excited to have a lovely young woman in studio with us. She is going to be taping with another lovely young woman, Jeanette Williams. She's going to be taping Women of Grace, and it will air next month. But this is a very, very beautiful story, her story, because September is going to be Childhood Cancer Month. And she's a cancer survivor, and she's going to be talking about ways to bring glory to God through trials, especially for children with cancer. Wow. It's going to be a beautiful topic, I'm sure. Challenging, but beautiful. The weather, though, in parts of the country, not so much in terms of beauty. There are a lot of issues weather-wise. We are looking at serious problems on the East Coast in terms of the storm system. And they're saying, look out, because they're going to have high waves, they're going to have floodings. And in many communities, by the way, and you'll hear that in the news as well, I'm pulling up the weather for you. In many communities, they're actually banning swimming, and they're going to ticket people if they go in the water because they're so concerned about their health. And then over on the West Coast, you have extreme heat. So you need to keep that in mind. And as soon as the official weather forecast comes up, we will give it to you as an ASAP. National Weather Service saying there's a dangerous record heat wave that is continuing for the desert Southwest and the Central Valley of California through tomorrow, and the Pacific Northwest through Tuesday. Coastal flooding expected through tonight at high tide along the eastern seaboard from Erin, while the high rip current risk and dangerous surf continue through the weekend. Flash flooding is possible today in Georgia and South Carolina. So there you go. There's your weather forecast as we are wrapping up the summer weekends, even though summer officially doesn't end until the middle of September. Technically, much like Memorial Day being the unofficial start of summer, Labor Day is considered the wrap-up of summer. You know, you're already seeing Christmas decorations in the stores. Yeah, a lot of it. Don't rush the season. Enjoy every moment. Stay tuned, and we will keep you up to date. As in right now, when we give you the news, it is 5 minutes past the hour here on EWTN Radio Extra. Well, of course, as we've been mentioning all morning, Pope Leo is calling for today to be a day of prayer and fasting for peace. A news release in the Vatican says a day of prayer and fasting comes as our world continues to be wounded by wars, not only in the Holy Land, but in Ukraine and other parts of the globe. The Holy Father is saying the day is an act of imploring the Lord to grant us peace and justice and to wipe away the tears of those who suffer because of ongoing armed conflicts. Meanwhile, Cardinal Pier Battista Piazzabella, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, expressing gratitude for the Pope's constant attention and a hope that people's hearts may change. He told Vatican News they're grateful for the attention to the theme of peace, which the Pope has returned to very often, he says, and almost always it's a very delicate theme, one felt very deeply by us, he says. It's not the first time, though, that we have committed ourselves to days of prayer and fasting. They have been done in the past, and it is the only thing that at this moment we can do to pray and to fast, to keep our attention directed toward God. In other news this morning, tensions are high in the Midwest and specifically Illinois, where parents expressed their concerns about a transgender student, a boy who made the girls' volleyball team at a high school there in the area of Hoffman Estates. Members of the public showed up to a school board meeting for the district earlier this week to voice their opinions about the boy identifying as a girl and a student athlete.
Would you want your daughter to compete against a boy who is 6'4"? Would you be happy if a boy secured a spot on the team meant for your daughter?
The meeting became so heated that at one point police had to escort one of the women in the audience out of the room. The controversy comes after the president signed an executive order earlier this year banning biological men and boys from competing in female sports. Catholic News Agency is reporting this morning that a pro-life group filed a formal complaint against late-term abortionist Cesar Santangelo this week, citing a documented history of medical malpractice and serious injury of patients. Leaders of the Survivors of the Abortion Holocaust group allege that Santangelo has a pattern of injuring patients, endangering lives, and prematurely ending at least one in the complaint, which was addressed to members of the D.C. Board of Medicine. The 12-page complaint details alleged medical malpractice by Santangelo that has led to the death or serious injury of patients. The letter was signed by the Survivors Director, Timothy Clement, and the Survivors D.C. organizer, Kristen Turner. President Trump is meeting with law enforcement in Washington, D.C., Trump thanking officers for cooperating with the federal takeover of the city's police as part of his crackdown on crime.
Some incredible results. The results have come out, and it's like a different place.
He said crime is indeed way down since the operation began. In an interview yesterday, the president hinting he also is planning to join law enforcement in patrolling the streets of D.C. Brian Shook tells us a new survey says illegal immigration hit a record high back in 2023.
The Pew Research Center found that 14 million immigrants came into the U.S. after the COVID-19 pandemic and Biden policy changes. The surge of immigrants came from 2021 to 2023 during the pandemic fallout that especially impacted poorer countries. California, Texas, Florida, and New York saw the most illegal immigrants come to their states. I'm Brian Shook.
The Trump administration says it plans on screening all 55 million foreigners with U.S. visas. The State Department releasing a statement yesterday saying continuous vetting of U.S. visitors will allow the agency to revoke visas after finding signs of potentially ineligibility, including indicators of overstays, criminal activity, threats to public safety, and any form of terrorist activity. Meanwhile, President Trump's penalty in his New York civil fraud case is being tossed out. An appeals court made the ruling yesterday in the case involving Trump. He weighed in on the matter during a visit with law enforcement in Washington.
And we're having a lot of victories. I had a victory today. You know, they stole $550 million from me with a fake case, and it was overturned. They said this was a fake case.
He was initially ordered to pay $355 million in penalties, and that only grew over time with interest. The appeals court judges called the penalty excessive, saying it violates the Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution. The White House calling that decision another failed skirmish in the discredited lawfare campaign against the president. And Michael Kastner tells us, meanwhile, the Trump administration can move forward now with pulling hundreds of millions of dollars in National Institutes of Health grants linked to diversity or so-called diversity initiatives after a big Supreme Court ruling that came down yesterday.
The 5-4 decision in part reversed a lower court ruling that canceling the funds was illegal. 5 of the court's conservative justices ruled in favor of the administration, accusing the lower court of defying an earlier Supreme Court ruling that allowed the administration to cancel grants. Chief Justice John Roberts joined the liberal justices in opposition. I'm Michael Kastner.
The suspect in that stabbing spree at a Michigan Walmart in July will have a competency hearing today. Bradford Glee is being held on a $100,000 bond, and the prosecution has noted a history of mental illness. He has since been charged with 1 count of terrorism and 11 counts of assault with intent to murder. He did plead not guilty on all charges. And officials now say reports of an active shooter on the Catholic campus of Villanova in Pennsylvania, well, those reports or the complaints were a hoax.
There was a call that came in around 4:30 this afternoon to law enforcement, to 911 center, saying that there was an active shooter in the building, in the law school building, and that there was a victim, at least one victim, who was wounded. That has turned out not to be true.
That's Delaware County District Attorney Jack Stolmeyer. School President Reverend Peter Donahue emailed students less than 2 hours after the alert, calling it a cruel hoax. So far, no word on who's behind the hoax, but officials say they are investigating. And Hurricane Erin now causing, as we mentioned during the weather forecast, coastal flooding in parts of North Carolina. Aaron Gilchrist reports from North Carolina's Outer Banks, where some areas are under evacuation orders and where a state of emergency is now in effect.
We knew this was going to be an ocean event. This was going to be a wind event, and we've been seeing strong winds in this area. Gusts where we are in the 30-mile-an-hour range. There have been stronger gusts, closer to 50 miles an hour.
The storm remains at Category 2 with maximum sustained winds of 105 miles an hour. It's now about 210 miles or so east of Cape Hatteras. The National Hurricane Center says it's moving north-northeast as it heads away from the coast. Meantime, swimming at most East Coast beaches being discouraged because of the threat of potentially life-threatening surf and also those rough tides. Well, if you're looking to get away from any kind of weather, whether you're on the East Coast, pun intended, or the West Coast, for example, the East Coast still seeing the ravages of Hurricane Erin, and the West Coast, the heat, you'll be glad to know that if you drive, you'll save some money over Labor Day weekend. Gas prices are expected to remain low for the upcoming holiday. AAA says a national average for a gallon of regular should stay below last year's average of $3.33 and should remain relatively low for the rest of the summer as long as Gulf Coast refineries are not hit by hurricanes. The most popular places to go for this Labor Day weekend, Seattle and Vancouver. Of course, both are port cities for Alaska cruises. We'll be right back on a Friday. 2 Cents is next. Welcome back. Hope you're having a beautiful day. It is a Friday. It's August 22nd, 2025, and we are talking media. Now, I did want to mention, I mentioned this briefly in my interview with Donna Rice-Hansen, someone that I think did so much good in terms of the media and promoting really great causes and promoting family values, James Dobson. He died at 89 years old, and at some point in the next couple of weeks, I want to get Dr. Meg Meeker back on. She's been a regular in this program. I haven't had her on in a while. She also does a podcast on the Focus on the Family. She worked very closely with Dr. Dobson. I've had the opportunity to interview him more than once, especially when I was working early on when I left secular media, and I was working in evangelical media for 2 years at the same station that my friend Leia Hunt worked at before joining Catholic radio shortly after that. But James Dobson, who is an evangelical Christian psychologist, author, and there's a really good story, by the way, from which I'm reading on Catholic News Agency, author and founder of Focus on the Family, an influential family counseling ministry, passed away yesterday at 89 years old. He advised 5 U.S. presidents on family policy, most recently as a member of Donald Trump's Evangelical Executive Advisory Board. He was also considered a leading light in the American conservative movement's fight for family values, including a focus on defending the institution of marriage as being between one man and one woman for biblical sexual ethics and gender roles and innocent life through opposition to abortion. So may he rest in peace. Well done, good and faithful servant. And I'll tell you what, we need more James Dobsons out there in the media today, and I'm sure you'll agree. Okay, speaking of the media, we ran that video of Bishop Barron. It's on his website, okay? So you go to wordonfire.org, and he talks about what's happened to him and how he's been the victim of AI. And he mentions that there were some crazy things out there. He actually had a woman, if you didn't hear the first part of the program this morning, he recounted a few months ago, a woman told him that she felt so badly about an altercation he supposedly had in a restaurant in Chicago. He said he hasn't been to Chicago in like 5 years, or eaten in a restaurant in Chicago in 5 years. How crazy is that? It was one of those, he says, AI-generated silly videos. And then there's another one that claimed he was summoned to Rome by the Pope. And he had a very high-level meeting with the Holy Father. He said, well, actually, I met him in May. I literally bumped into him. I shook his hand and he smiled at me. That was the extent of our meeting. And then here's something. A video that was circulated in which he supposedly gave recommendations on how to remove demons from your toilet. He said it's absolutely ridiculous. And so there is a video on his website that you may watch, and he stressed the same thing that the Pope stressed and that I want to stress as a media expert, as I talk about in my many books, including my first book, Noise, How Our Media-Saturated Culture Dominates Lives and Dismantles Families. It's one of the first things you learn in J-School. In addition to follow the money, it's considered the source. To whom or what are you following? What sources? If you see a video that seems shocking and controversial, and it seems like it's a particular spokesperson or leader or priest or bishop or whomever, an actor speaking about something, and it is very dramatic, for example, or they're asking for money, when in doubt, check it out. But be in doubt, be suspect. You have to be, I'm not saying you have to be paranoid, but you have to be so careful. We just did that interview also in the first hour with Donna Rice-Hansen regarding problems online with AI and how this thing is so out of control. And what I wanted to talk about mainly this morning in our 2 cents segment, with all of this in mind, is that the Pope is saying, you know what, it's not just those who are developing content and new tools on the internet that are responsible. He gave a statement to the AI for Good 2025 summit held in Geneva, and this was last month. And he said that although responsibility for the ethical use of AI systems begins with those who develop, manage, and oversee them, those who use them also share in this responsibility. So in other words, just because we don't know how something works or may not be all that familiar with technology doesn't give us an excuse for not looking into it further in terms of potential problems. So here's the full statement. I've got it right in front of me. Although responsibility for the ethical use of AI systems begin with those who develop, manage, and oversee them, those who use them also share in this responsibility. AI, therefore, he says, requires proper ethical management and regulatory frameworks centered on the human person and which go beyond the more criteria of utility or efficiency. Ultimately, we must never lose sight of the common goal of contributing to that which is known as, according to St. Augustine, the tranquility of order, and fostering a more humane order of social relations and peaceful and just societies in service of integral human development and the good of the human family. Okay? So we have a responsibility. Those behind these new technologies have a responsibility, but so do we. Now, this goes back to one of my favorite documents from John Paul II. Pope John Paul II, of course, now St. Pope John Paul II, wrote a lot about media, okay? And there was something that was started after Vatican II, and these are great little nuggets, and they're called World Communications Day statements. And John Paul II also put out a lot about media in general and proper usage. As a matter of fact, one of those statements was called Media, a Risk and a Richness. And it is, I think, one of the best statements on that balance. So it's a risk, right, as we've been talking about this morning, both in the first hour of the program and then now in 2 Cents and also with Donna from Enough is Enough. It is a risk. We have to be aware, but there's also a richness in it in terms of the value that media, when used properly, when used well, can have. And this, by the way, you can look up online. He put it out a year before he passed away. World Communications Statement, 2004. The media and the family, a risk and a richness. He says the extraordinary growth of the communications media and their increased availability, now this is 21 years ago, has brought exceptional opportunities for enriching the lives not only of individuals but also families. At the same time, families today face new challenges arising from the varied and often contradictory messages presented by the mass media. And so his theme for the World Communications Day 2004 was the media and the family, a risk and a richness, is a timely one, for it invites sober reflection on the use which families make of the media and in turn on the way families and families' concerns are treated by the media. So again, just as Pope Leo was saying, it's a double responsibility, those who are creating or putting out the media and those who are consuming it. So he talks about in this statement from John Paul II, policymakers, public authorities, and then he also talks about families and parents being the primary, most important educators of their children, are also the first to teach them about the media. They are called to train their children in the moderate, critical, watchful, and prudent use of the media in the home. When parents do that consistently and well, family life is greatly enriched. He says parents also need to regulate the use of media in the home. This would include planning and scheduling media use, strictly limiting the time children devote to media, making entertainment a family experience, putting some media entirely off limits, and periodically excluding all of them for the sake of other family activities. Above all, parents should have good examples to children by their own thoughtful and selected use of the media. So, brothers and sisters, this was Pope John Paul II a year before he died in 2004. That was 21 years ago. It's now 2025. Okay? Think about that. He was talking about the same things Pope Leo is talking about today, that we also, consumers of media, as well as developers of new media, have a responsibility. We can't just play dumb and say, oh, I don't understand all this stuff, so therefore it's not my fault. No, we will all be held responsible, Pope Paul VI said, for how we use the media and answer to it before God, especially where children are involved. We'll be right back. Hope you're having a beautiful Friday. It's August 22nd, 2025. In studio with us, Leia Hunt, and very excited to have her here. She just tapes episodes of Women of Grace, which will air on September 10th and 11th, so you want to jot that down on your calendar. September, by the way, which is only, less than 2 weeks away, is Childhood Cancer Month, and Leia knows all about that. She's also speaking on September 4th, and she's going to be talking about Hope in the Kingdom. It's going to be at the Hope in the Kingdom Gala, and we'll talk about that with her. But she's telling us, I think, very, very beautifully and importantly, as she explained to Jeanette, ways to bring glory to God through trials, especially for children with cancer. Leia, thank you for joining us. You're the founder and executor of Leia's Kids, right?
Hello. Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. So tell us, I know we only have about 30 minutes with you this morning, so we'll have to have you back on, but How did Leia's Kids get started, and what exactly is Leia's Kids?
Right. So to really understand what Leia's Kids is and everything that is involved in the foundation is really to know more about like my story. Mm-hmm. And so as a young child, I was diagnosed with cancer, retinoblastoma in my left eye. And so I was about 2.5 years old, and I started treatment. We did chemo, radiation. I relapsed, did over 26 surgeries, and then lost the complete vision in my left eye. And so as a young child, this was my entire life. I always say that I knew more about medical terminology than I did about Disney princesses. And so when you face something like that as a young age, your life kind of begins very differently than other people's. And I will say that I always knew that there was a reason that I was here, that God had a mission and a purpose for me. And as I got older, up into high school, I remember I went to my parents and I told them, I said, I want to do more. I was like, I know I'm here. I know there's a purpose. I've seen so many kids pass away from pediatric cancer. What can I do? What is God calling me to do? And one thing led to another. My dad looked at me and he's like, have you ever thought about doing your own nonprofit? And at that time, I was working with like the Eye Tumor Research Foundation and my hospital and so many other nonprofits. And I was like, you know what, I would love to, but I want to be one-on-one with the families. I want to hold the mom's hand. I want to be there when the little girl asks the question as why she's bald or why he has cancer. And so I kind of took that idea and took that desire that I had in my heart, and one thing led to another, and it was on my 18th birthday that I got home from cross-country practice. I went to the basement, opened my dad's laptop, and I filed to create a 501c3 nonprofit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So the website is leiaskids.org. So how long did it take you to, because you were very young when this began, to really get started with speaking and drawing attention to help other kids with cancer?
Right. So the speaking actually began before the nonprofit. One day, my dad actually got a phone call from the local news, and I grew up in Steubenville, Ohio. Okay. So the local news called my dad, and it was like, hey, there's this girl in town. She doesn't have cancer, but she's losing her vision, and we're having a benefit dinner at a church. And so they're like, well, Leia, come speak and share a little bit about her story. And at that time, I was 14, 15 years old. And it was my first time really ever public speaking. And so I went to the church and I gave a little bit testimony. And I just talked about, since I lost my vision in one eye, things that have helped me and how I navigated being a little bit different in school. And so then that kind of led to the news anchor was like, hey, you need to get into modeling. And then modeling kind of pushed me into, working with different videographers. And so I was able to work with a videographer that made a documentary about me. And at this point now I'm like a junior in high school. And then from that kind of led to more speaking events. And since I was in Steubenville, Ohio, I got to attend, multiple Catholic events that I was able to share just a little bit about my heart and my journey. And then from there, the ball just kept rolling.
So you're doing so much of a beautiful website, by the way. It's really, I love the little crowns on lists.
Thank you.
You got to get the girly girl in there.
Right? Yes, of course.
So
I'm very girly, so it's perfect.
Yeah. So in terms of what you're doing now, has the focus shifted? Are you doing, have you expanded? What are your main goals right now from where you began many years ago?
Oh my goodness. Yes, we have expanded and grown. And every single day I have a new idea, to the point where people that I work with are like, okay, no more ideas, Leah. We need to finish the first one we started. And so when I first began the nonprofit, it was really in silence. I didn't tell anybody. Again, I was a senior in high school and I was very shy back in the day. And I really kept it to myself. And so my parents and I would find families that were going through cancer in the newspaper that were having like spaghetti dinners. And I would show up at the spaghetti dinners with a check and just be like, hi, I'm Leah. I had cancer. I started this nonprofit a few months ago and I want to give you a donation. And I'll write them a check. And we did that to like 3-4 different families. And then it was Easter Sunday and the news actually put out an article about Leia's Kids, and that is kind of when it took off. It kind of had that moment where everybody in town, all my teachers, all my classmates kind of found out about what I was doing behind the scenes. And so from there, we just started with donations, those checks to give the families relief to cover all those miscellaneous costs. And then from there, we evolved into family dream parties. We published a children's book, battle plan journals. We do mental health retreats now for our teens and young adults, and so many more things. We created a princess. We created the first ever childhood cancer princess. Her name is Princess Marigold.
Marigold.
Yes.
Adorable. Yeah.
So the ball just keeps rolling, and I have 1,000 more ideas that I can't wait to one day watch come to life.
So there's so much that you're doing for others. What have you learned? I mean, there's so many lessons here, and in terms of your faith and looking back. And one of my favorite verses is Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. What advice would you give families who are struggling with what your family struggled with when you were a child? Yeah.
Right. I think that really when you're fighting cancer, it comes down to the power of choice. And I think that's the greatest lesson that I've learned from my own personal journey, but also through running a nonprofit. Because to be honest, at 18, I had no idea how to run a nonprofit. I never sat in a board member. And it was an entire new journey, one filled with trust. But I've always learned that, any situation can have beauty, but you have to choose to see the beauty. And that's really where I think that trust comes into play, and that power of choosing the good. Especially in the walk of life of cancer, you have two ways that you can go. You can go the path of hatred and anger and why God and why me, or you could walk the path of joy, of happiness, of not fully understanding, of not having the answers. You still have those why me questions, but you're laying down that cross and offering it up for the goodness of love and life and charity and hope.
Wow, that's beautiful. I want to direct people to your website, leaskids.org, and then we want to talk about, when we come back, briefly, I think we have about 30 seconds, you have a royal ball coming up, right?
Yes, I'm so excited. September 4th in Frisco, Texas.
Wow. So that must be, I'm thinking just in my mind, that you allow young people to come, maybe little girls, and dress up and make it really special?
Yes. So my girls and my boys are coming. They're getting all glammed and glitzed before the ball, and then they are getting crowned on stage by special guests, and we're going to honor them. We have a moment to celebrate them. Basically, their coronation is going to happen on stage, and they're going to get their royal crown.
That is so wonderful. So I want to send people to the website, Leo's Kids, and I'm sitting here and I'm seeing people donate. The little things are popping up. So many people are donating. So maybe there's people listening. So if you are, go to leaskids.org and you can learn. Another one just donated. Here you go. $25 just came up. I'm looking at this.
Perfect.
There you go. We're gonna keep it going. We're having a little fundraiser for you. Another one. That's 3 in the last 30 seconds. I'm not kidding. leaskids.org. Check it out. What a beautiful ministry. A beautiful story of what God can do with our yes, especially in suffering. Stay tuned. Minutes past the hour. Welcome back, Catholic Connection. We're talking with Leia Hunt, founder and executive director of Leah's Kids. So tell us a little bit more about the Royal Ball. That sounds like a blast.
Yes, so the Royal Ball is our evening. It's a benefit gala for the foundation, and really it's rooted on hope in the kingdom. And Leah's Kids, if you can tell on our website and everything, we're very much about royalty. And so where that royalty and the crowns and the color purple really stemmed from is actually a verse in the Bible, James 1:12, and it says, "We bear our cross to receive our crown and eternal glory." And woven in through the pillars and the foundation of Leah's Kids is that message of hope that, we all have a cross that we're carrying. Our families, for me and the families that I serve, it's pediatric cancer. For other people out there listening, it might be divorce or diabetes or something along those lines. And so what we really work with our families is that we are carrying that cross, but we're going to receive our crown in eternal glory. And what does that mean? That means maybe you're going to get your crown earth side, or maybe you're going to get your crown heaven side. But there's a purpose to this suffering. There's hope to this suffering. And that's really going to be told through the Royal Ball that we're going to have with our children that are going to come up, that are actively fighting, that families that are in their trenches are going to get honored, they're going to get loved, and they're going to get the royal crown that God has designed for them.
So how did you find that particular verse? Because it's very powerful and pertaining to what you do.
Yeah, so actually I got it in adoration. So right after high school, I actually was a missionary at Hard as Nails Ministries with Justin Fatika. And
okay, yeah. I've interviewed him many times.
Yeah, so I spent 2 years with him. And when we were headquartered in Syracuse, New York, and actually he put us all in the chapel for an extended, like a very long time. And he said, read the Bible, get to know the word, pray for a scripture to really come to you. And at that point, I already started Leia's Kids. And Justin was helping me grow and learn more about the nonprofit world and more about discipleship. And during that time with him, that verse really stuck out to me. And that was the verse that I was able to take to all the states that we traveled to. And it really was the foundation that I was able to expand Leia's Kids on, because we already had the crowns and we already had the crowning ceremonies. And so through prayer and devotion, I was able to really just find it. I opened it up and there it was. And I was like, that is so in tune to what I'm doing. And it has never left my side since.
Well, that's not a coincidence,
right?
For a specific reason. God's like, hello, you want a verse? Here you go.
Yes, I needed one and he delivered.
Yeah, exactly. It's that sometimes, be careful what you pray for, because it's going to be right there in front of you. Like, then you got to do something with it. I wanted to talk about the beauty that we have in the Catholic faith of understanding suffering. It's interesting. I came across an article, and I check so many try to check as many websites as possible before I do my show every day. And I look at some of the evangelical websites, whether it's Christianity Today or the Christian Post, and I forget which one. There's a very interesting book that just came out in the Protestant world. It's a young African-American pastor. He's growing in his ministry, and he has had a lot of troubles in his life, and he wrote a book about suffering. And his take is that in the Protestant world, and this is just his opinion, but I've noticed this among some of my very faith-filled evangelical friends, that suffering is a difficult thing, and they don't know how to approach it all the time, because it's not discussed. And in some circles, it's even said, well, you're being punished or you didn't pray hard enough. And so what he was saying in this interview, Leia, was so Catholic in terms of suffering and how it can be redemptive. And I think we are so blessed in our faith because we have so much to learn on the teaching of redemptive suffering and so much available to us. What do you think?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think there is definitely a lack of that sensitivity to sin and suffering. And I think suffering is something that it's hard for people to enter into. Nobody wants to see the sad commercials. Right. Nobody wants to sit and think about their hardship that they're going through. But there's a beauty inside that hardship. But it's really taking that step of faith, that leap, and being like, okay, what am I being taught here? What am I being told here? And for me, I remember as a young girl, I remember standing up on stage and being like, I'm so grateful for my cancer. And the crowd stopped talking. Nobody, there was a hush that went over the crowd. And I was like, no, let me say it again. I'm so grateful for my cancer. And they're like, why? Because I was like, well, if it wasn't for my cancer, it wasn't for that trauma that I went through, then I wouldn't have Leia's Kids. I wouldn't be able to sit with the moms and the dads. I wouldn't be able to tell kids that they're still beautiful and amazing and have a purpose. But that came from my trial. That came from suffering. But that did not come overnight. It took me years and years. And I remember sitting on my kitchen counter one time, and at that point I was in middle school. I was really going through it. My left eye, since I'm blind in it, it drifts. It's a different color. It has its own little party. And I remember sitting there, and I was just like, okay, God, you are all powerful. And I'm going to close my eyes right now, and I'm going to pray real hard. And on the count of 10, I'm going to open my eyes, and I'm going to see.
Yeah.
And that's all I wanted. I was like, why am I different? And so I counted to 10, and I opened my eyes, and I looked all around my kitchen. I was like, okay, nope, still blind in one eye. I said, okay, God, you're just getting warmed up. You want me to do this again? You're testing me. I was like, okay. So I did it again, and I still couldn't see. But in that moment, that is when I realized my life's purpose. In that moment, that is when I realized that, okay, there was something far more greater than just pediatric cancer. My story is not done, and there is a beautiful, beautiful next chapter ready to be written, but I have to accept that and take that on.
Yeah, and it's you said early on in the interview, you have a choice. You can go in one direction or the other. You can become very bitter and angry. Why me? And I think when we have suffering, we all wonder, right? That's a natural response. But if you hang on to that and you dig in your heels, you can make your situation even worse because of what bitterness and unforgiveness and jealousy can do, not only to you emotionally and spiritually, but physically, right?
Right, most definitely. I think that that suffering is so powerful, but it really is depending on which way you look at it. And it's so hard because you never, when a parent buries a child, you can't walk up to them and be like, oh, there's a purpose to this. That's not what they want to hear, but they want you to sit with them in the suffering. They want their child's name to be told, their light to be lived on, for other people to remember who their child was and to carry their light with them in their hearts and everything that they do. And that there's no really answer why somebody gets cancer, young or old. And I can't stand here and say that, this is what God is going to do with your story, because we as people don't know, but I know in my heart that God is all good. And if God is all good, then this cancer is going to turn into something good along the way.
And also, I think it requires us to go deeper when we suffer, because if we look at suffering, this is not what God wanted. He doesn't go around zapping people. He didn't want cancer. He didn't want pollution. He didn't want war. He came and gave us this earth, and original sin, unfortunately, came into it. And so this is all of this, and it could be, for example, people who get cancer could get it because of something someone has done with the environment, right? Or something someone has done with food. I mean, there's all these different connections to what may cause. Sometimes it's our own bad choices. For example, we know what happens when you smoke. I mean, the evidence is there on that. So, now we have that before us. But what we do with it is so important. And my husband and I had a very, very tumultuous issue in our marriage for many years, and we separated twice. And it was very painful. And had we not gone through that, he would not be a deacon and I would not be a Catholic talk show host. It's that simple. Wow. It's because that suffering, he's talking about, he just wrote his homily for this week, and he's been a deacon now for 13 years. It was in that suffering, in our marriage, in our relationship, Leah, that brought us to our knees and changed everything.
Right. Wow.
I don't know where we would be without it, because it forced us to take our Catholic faith seriously. And all these things, your suffering, other people's suffering, they're all miracles to be had if we embrace them.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I agree with you. There was a family that we served, and their daughter she was on hospice, and she was passing away from DIPG, which is a terminal brain cancer. And there really is no cure for DIPG. And the family they were a poor family, and they were struggling, and we were able to give them like a last wish. We were able to give the daughter one last party with princesses, and they were able to bring all their extended family in, and they just needed all the love and hope and support that we could give them. And I placed the crown on their daughter's head, and this was probably like 2 weeks before she passed away. And I gave them the message of the crown, and the mom just fell to the floor on her knees in tears and saying, I've been so angry with God. He's taking my perfect, beautiful girl. I don't have much in this world, and he's choosing me to take my daughter away from me. And in that moment, she was like, but I understand what you're saying. I am seeing now that my beautiful little girl has a bigger purpose than walking on this earth. And I believe that God really does exist. And to me, that was like the most powerful moment of my entire life, because I'm just trying to bring hope to these little kids, but God is really working. And sometimes people need to see the other side. They need that desire to be pulled out of them.
I know you've written books, but do you keep a journal of these different stories? Because that in itself, in terms of your encounters with these people, Leah, could be an amazing book.
Right, that would be an amazing book. I do have them written down in various places. Yeah. Different stories and different things that parents have told me, or little kids have told me when they ask, why me, Leah? And so, yes. But hopefully one day I would love to write another book about that. I think that would be definitely powerful. Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to give people your website. What's the best way to find you? leahaskids.org?
Yes, leahaskids.org, but also on social media. We're on all platforms. You can follow us at Leia Hunt or at Leah's Kids.
All right, and you're going to be a guest on Jeanette's Beautiful Women of Grace program that will air on September 10th and 11th, so we make sure that you watch it. It will be airing during Child Cancer Month, which is the month of September. So I want to give another shout out to your first annual ball, because this is just so adorable and wonderful and beautiful and joyful. Joy, 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 joy. Right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. It's going to be the most magical, hope-filled. Everything is purple. We have people coming from all over. It's going to be the best night ever. All are welcome.
Like, lots of bling. So Jeanette and I would fit right in with the bling, right?
Absolutely. Full ball gowns, tuxedos. You might even see a horse-drawn carriage make an appearance.
No way.
All the things.
How fun. So how many people are coming so far? Do you know?
We're about between 200 and 300 people are coming.
Okay, so tell us where it is and how people can come. You don't have to be from Texas, right?
No, we have people flying in from all over. I have some doctors flying in, so it's going to be absolutely amazing. But it is September 4th. That is a Thursday, and it's in Frisco, Texas, so right outside of Dallas, Texas. And it starts at 6 p.m. all the way to 10 p.m., and all are welcome. The venue is called Verona Villa. It's a gorgeous, it looks like a castle, and it's a beautiful venue.
And so how many children are coming, do you know?
We have about 20 kids coming from all ages, down from little tiny humans to my teenagers, boys and girls.
And so you have a purple dress?
Oh, of course, yes, with ruffles and sparkles and the whole 9 yards.
You got to get the glass slippers. You know, those jelly shoes and those clear shoes are back in, so you could get some with like some
that would be perfect.
Yeah.
That would be perfect because I got to do a lot of running around, and I'll have white gloves on, the whole 9 yards. Oh, yeah.
You're going to look like one of the princesses from the movies.
We're going to recreate Princess Marigold's children's book.
Well, you know, my nieces, they just turned 9 on September 2nd, and they are so much into the bling. It is so much fun. And that is such a beautiful thing to really enjoy that with the kids, is to make them feel special and to dress them up. It just affects your whole being, your well-being, you know, when you do that for someone.
Right. It's going to be perfect. And Princess Marigold herself, the real character, is coming in person to be with the children,
wow.
too. Yes. It's going to be powerful.
Awesome. Well, I hope you meet up with our friends from Guadalupe Radio. I don't know if you've touched base with them, because I'm sure they would help you get the word out as well. They're terrific. They're great people there, and they're based, their offices are in Dallas. So if they're listening right now, hopefully they will jump on this. Leah, what a joy you are. Thank you for sharing this and for making such a difference. And you know, in addition to helping families who are struggling with a child with cancer, your witness is giving people hope, as you said early on, and who struggle with maybe another type of a challenge, right?
Right, definitely. That's what I would want to come across as, you know, because we all have a different cross, we all have a different challenge, but in it we all have suffering in common.
Yeah. But never lose your joy, although it can be really hard sometimes. I always think of the word joy as an acronym: Jesus first, others second, yourself last. And the reason you're so joyful is because you're giving of yourself and you're helping so many people. Thank you, my dear. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
All right, honey, and we look forward to seeing you in full bling at the ball.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
on the air with our bling sister, Jeanette Williams. We'll be right back. Wishing you a beautiful Friday and a beautiful weekend, August 22nd, 2025. And we are also hoping that after your weekend has concluded and you wake up bright and early on Monday morning, that you'll tune back in right here on this very station, EWTN, this very network, the first and the second hour. The first hour, of course, on EWTN Global Catholic Radio, all of our affiliates, the internet and Sirius, and this particular hour, second hour, broadcast on EWTN Radio Extra. Okay, so Monday, it's going to be fun. Matt Swaim, Journey Home Highlights. Of course, he is a producer of The Journey Home on EWTN Television, also with the Coming Home Network, and he is the host of the Sunrise Morning Show, heard every day here on EWTN Radio. And I'm so excited because Matt Swaim, myself, and Annie Banani, as I call her, Anna Mitchell, are going to be speaking with Ace McKay at the radio conference next week, which will be a lot of fun. And then we are going to take a look at the Little Sisters of the Poor. These sisters are so strong, they are under constant attack from the left. They keep, it's like they get one court victory and they're set back again. And so we're going to get an update from Lori Wyndham, one of the attorneys working on the many cases that these sisters have had to battle. But they keep going, and we'll keep them in our prayers. It'll be an interesting update, I'm sure, from Lori. And then this is going to be a lot of fun. We are going to be talking with a priest who's a pastor of one of our listeners in Pennsylvania, who made the suggestion to bring his pastor, Father Alan Hoffa, on, talking about how successful he's been with using media wisely, in particular with TikTok. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on a Monday. Ciao, ciao.